Hey guys, this is Ed from Mission Impossible, and with me I have Wyatt, and we're going to be doing RetroGrade, a look into Atari 2600 games released by Parker Brothers. We have a lot today, so let's get into it.
All right. Just jumping right in.
Let's do it.
How is it pronounced?
Amidar.
Amidar.
Yeah.
The commercial was confusing because it seems counterintuitive to how everybody else pronounces it.
Sure.
Solid B game though. The theming was kind of weird. We were playing it for quite a while, so I got to give it pretty decent. Sort of an odd set of themes, though. You're a gorilla and then a paintbrush.
Yeah, being a paintbrush, that was weird.
It seemed unnecessary to have both, and it was fun, but it was kind of slow.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a bad way, just in a way where it's not my favorite. So I got to give it a solid B. But yeah, it was fine.
It was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. My thought is it's at least a B. I had never really played it before, but as I mentioned in the stream, I do like that concept of a game where you're kind of filling in sections and stuff. I'm gonna leave it there for now. I think that the theming is weird. It was almost like we have a cool game concept, but don't know what to put in it. And I mean, truly, a lot of those things could be anything. I mean, the guy, he's a gorilla, but I mean, really, you
couldn't tell.
A guy.
Yeah. Also, just I don't know. Sort of, you're being chased by tribal people, not zookeepers. They went with the most insensitive portrayal instead of just guys in hats or making it aliens. Or it just feels strange that they chose to theme it the way they did.
I don't know.
Because it doesn't feel like it. What do you mean you don't?
I don't know why they did it that way.
Right.
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it. Okay, good.
Okay, so let's order those differences.
Oh, yeah?
That way.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Frogger then. Frogger, I'm also going to give a B. Okay. It's a pretty solid port of Frogger, but it was, it's a simple Frogger game. Like you said, no one can dislike Frogger. I don't think so. Anyway.
I love Frogger, and I gotta say, it was a really good port. I mean, they got all the things right. I mean, they didn't have music during the game. That would be my only fault on it. If they did, it might go into S tier for me. The one possible negative was the fact that it had some flickering, which we didn't really see in a lot of the other games.
Yeah, a pretty good amount of flickering in there.
Yeah. On some of the things, it was flickering pretty bad.
Which I honestly got to say, I liked Frogger 2 a lot more. I thought that was really interesting, the way they had so many different screens, and there was seemingly a lot going on. You could ride the turtle, you were avoiding the fish. There was a lot more to it, and I thought it improved on everything that the first one that they made did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely more interesting. I definitely say that. Now, because it was, not Frogger. I mean, it was Frogger 2. It was similar in theme. I have a hard time rating it higher than Frogger for the just from the point of view of it being a derivative from Frogger. So. But still a good game.
Mm-hmm. Frogger 2, real great. I really liked it overall, though. So, I think it was an improvement. Different in some ways, but then some of the other levels were also more like original Frogger.
Yep.
So I thought it had a nice blend of the new stuff and the old stuff, too, which was kind of interesting. The G.I. Joe game, what does it say down there?
Cobra Strike, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Cobra Strike.
Yeah.
I want to rate that game pretty well, actually, because I did have a lot of fun playing it.
Mm-hmm.
It was an interesting game. Cobra is like shooting soldiers, and you just have to shield and slowly defeat more and more giant cobras.
Right.
Which almost feels like it got the G.I. Joe tagline sort of secondhand, right?
Sure.
Like, it's got a cobra in it and people.
Yeah.
We can make the people be the G.I. Joes, yeah.
Exactly.
But I did have a lot of fun with it, but I'm not sure if I can put it in A still.
Right.
I don't know if it was that spectacular. So I'm gonna throw it into B.
I wasn't a big fan of it, to be honest. I thought it was okay, but I really didn't have a lot of fun with it. I don't know. It was kind of, it was interesting. I like the fact that they were trying to do the 3-player kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's interesting that they were doing that, because there was a second cannon on the right. That would be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and that might be better, and that might change my opinion. You know, I haven't had a lot of time to spend with it, but kind of right now, I would still have to give it a C.
Oh, man. Rude.
Sorry, man.
You did do that. You can't keep you did that one. That was on you.
Yeah, we can't be the same every time.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just want to be different, I feel.
Yeah.
Copycat.
Yeah.
But Gyruss, that's how you pronounce it, right? Not Gyruss.
Correct.
Gyruss, we lost a lot of time to it because I was just
You were in the zone, man.
I was just really enjoying myself.
Yes.
The music being so consistent and really catchy helps you really get into it.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of, you're kind of playing to the rhythm almost. Mm-hmm. It was a really enjoyable experience. I really liked this game. I can see why you have that cabinet over there for it.
It's a fun game. I can't disagree. I mean, the deal is in this game is one of the most important things in the game is the music. And to be, anybody that plays the game, it's like that's kind of the key thing. And the fact that they had it and it sounded great. The graphics, I mean, it played very much like the arcade version, obviously lower fidelity on the graphics, but it was a solid game.
It felt very fast, though.
Yes.
It felt
you did really well, though. I'm wondering if it was like a difficulty thing or whatever.
I have no idea.
It's easier than the arcades.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Just in general, a lot of these games tend to be, though.
That's true.
But I enjoyed myself quite a lot, and that's definitely a game I want to play more in the future. Which, James Bond 007, do I want to play this one in the future? Because that's kind of what I ask myself when I do these rankings.
Sure.
Would I play this again? I don't think I would play James Bond 007 again. That game was very lackluster. Didn't really feel like it was James Bond in any reasonable amount.
Right.
Like, Diamonds in the Sky is so... That's... I don't know.
Unless you have to shoot.
Yeah. It feels very much like... I don't know, word association of James Bond.
Right.
There are multiple levels, which is interesting. In one you have to kind of go up and down water and sky, which is kind of interesting, except... not super. Like, it was just kind of like, oh, you don't move very fast. You can only go halfway across the screen, so you don't really have a lot of control over what's going on.
Yeah.
It was kind of bad, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was okay.
I'm not going to rank it a D, but it's certainly teetering on the edge of that for me. I did not really have a great time with it.
I'm going to have to put it in C as well. Lower than G.I. Joe. I thought, I mean, it was kind of like, oh, cool, it's based off of 007 and stuff, but it really just kind of didn't really do a whole lot for me.
But was it really based on that?
Yeah. Exactly.
Again, this one, even more so than the G.I. Joe one, feels like they were just like, yeah, it's James Bond? Of course it is.
Sure.
And it's just a real time, I guess.
Right.
So I wouldn't play it again.
Fair enough.
But I'm not going to say that it's the worst made game that was put out.
Definitely
so, what's next? Montezuma's Revenge?
Correct.
Yes. Where your life bar is either Panama hats or a sombrero, and it's kind of unclear which it is.
Right.
His name was originally Pedro, I think we found out. Now it's Panama Joe.
Right. Something like that.
Yeah. You have a very positive connection to this game, but was this the version you had a really good connection to?
No, not at all. But it's a thing where the game, what I was used to on the Atari 8-bit, great game. But go ahead and rank yours, and I'll talk.
I guess so.
I don't want to influence your score.
I'm gonna give it a B. I think just because. I might give it a slightly lower B though, because as much as I thought it was a pretty interesting game, and I'm sure there are versions that are just fantastic with it.
Sure.
Or could be. Some of the things like how easy it is to fall down and just the absolute lack of a gap of those laser walls that you have to walk through was like, that's unreasonable. That a half second, a quarter second more, and it would have been close to reasonable. But it was hard not to run into those things constantly.
Not much slop there.
No, not really.
Yeah. So yeah, I love Montezuma's Revenge. Now this version, I think was very close to what I had played on the 8-bit. But yeah, there are some problems with it in that, yes, the falling, it is very unforgiving. And that is a function of the game itself, not the port at all.
Sure.
But that being said, I kind of want to give it an S. But
it's not the version that you would necessarily give it.
True. I mean, that could be said for a lot of these as well.
Oh, absolutely. But we were talking about Gyruss. Gyruss is a game where this is a version that I had a lot of fun with.
Sure.
I think that Gyruss, having played no other version, is an S even on the 2600 by its own merit.
Fair.
As a 2600 game, not just based on other versions or the game as a whole. So that's just my opinion, though. Another weird one. I'm gonna give this one a high C. The Mr. Do's Castle.
Yes.
Which didn't do it for me in the same way that Mr. Do did. As a
Mr. Did?
This is Mr. Did.
Yeah. Mr. Didn't.
Yeah.
Mr.
Kinda.
Don't? There we go.
Don't. Mr. Don't's Castle.
Yes.
I don't know. The first one was so whimsical, had fairly clear graphics that I could interpret and enjoyed. This one, everything felt like it took a step back from that. It wasn't as clear what was going on. It wasn't like as whimsical or charming, and it was way harder to tell what was actually going on, Right. Like, it was just a little bit off for me, I think is the big thing.
Right.
And not to say that it was a bad game. You could kind of figure out what was going on over time. I got a few of the guys down, and I ended up getting score over time, but it's really unclear what you're actually doing at most points.
Right.
And I don't know, it just doesn't have the charm of the other one.
Well, I think the biggest problem with this one, for me, with the game in general, what they were trying to task with, is that it is a vertical game, okay? In the arcades, it's a vertical game, and they had a lot of vertical space, and they really use the vertical space. And so the idea is that you could very easily see when a guy gets stuck in there and you're hitting the thing down. It was very obvious in the arcade game. And the height of it was the problematic part. So they had a real hard time with this on making the game playable. I think that the graphics and the music were amazing. I thought that part was great. The problem was that they didn't have enough vertical space to actually give you all the detail you needed. And that's unfortunate because it was not very obvious on what ones you needed to hit down. And it was really kind of, for the first couple of games, just floating around, not knowing what to do. And that's, when we get into these games, at the beginning, you pull up the manual and you read what you're trying to do. You shouldn't have to pull up a manual to play these games. And I feel like with that one, you kind of do, because you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and that's bad. So graphics...
Nothing was clear.
Yeah, graphics and sound were great. The fact that it has the music going while you're playing, that's all great. But if it's not playable, the best music and sound, best music and graphics don't, make it a better game.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a C. Yeah, I have to go give it a C because even all that stuff, I can't rate it higher because it's just, I would not want to play.
Oh no,
that
I would
version
never
again.
play that version again.
Yeah.
It's just not a great time.
No.
I did have a little fun with the next one. Popeye, I thought was kind of fun, but I'm not sure whether to throw it at the top of C in a good way or the bottom of B, because this version, I don't know. I had a decent time with it, but there's a lot of hearts to get. It's kind of takes a long time. I don't know if other versions are like this as well, but it felt kind of slow. And yeah, like you were talking about, there are cans being thrown, but they just kind of appear. And so it was a little harder to actually know what is going on.
Sure.
And, not that it is bad by any means, so I think I'm going to give it a low B.
Okay.
Because I'll leave Amidar or whatever a little higher, but I like Popeye as a property. It's got a lot of charm to it. I think this one does as well, catching the hearts. They weren't very heart-shaped in this version, which is not really a huge complaint, but
right.
Just sort of looked like you were picking up weird, like, floating tissues or something.
I thought that this was a great version. I'm used to the 8-bit version, as with a lot of these games. But it included almost everything that the arcade had. It did have the music going. I thought that this was a great port. You were mentioning the slowness. I don't think that is as much an issue on the other games, but it could have been there, and I just didn't pay attention to it.
Sure.
There are some details that they left out, but the fact that they actually have all the screens and stuff makes it a much cooler game.
Not that we saw all of them.
We didn't actually finish it. So, but we had a limited time when we were going through the list on the live stream. So, but I still think it was a solid port. So.
Qubes next then, because I don't think I have anything else to add. That's pretty succinct. Man, some of this stuff is kind of hard to rank, not necessarily because I was blown away by it or really upset with it, but like Qbert, and I think by extension here in a second I'll talk about Qubert's cubes, were fine. They were okay. I didn't have a great time with them.
Have you played Qbert before?
I have played Qbert once before. Very difficult with the controls we were using. People talk about, you were talking about like rotating it to make it work, and it's like, that's an awkward way to have to do that. I can't rank it super highly, but it's like, I don't want to give it a C because I don't think it was bad. The graphics were pretty solid. You could tell what was going on. But I don't know if I want to give it a B because I didn't have a lot of fun with it. So it's like, it's difficult for me, and I feel like I'm being maybe nitpicky. It's just, at this level that we've gotten to, I've seen some really great stuff. And great stuff from this company with the Froggers and with Gyruss and stuff. There's really good quality here, and I just don't know that all of the games meet that. So I'm gonna rank it at a C, I think, for this particular port.
Fair. I will say I am not the biggest Qbert fan. I've played it many times. I've never really spent a lot of time, into it just because, again, you were kind of mentioning, it's never really clicked with me as being a game that I really want to play a lot of. I will say that it is a really good port. I am going to go with a B, though. I feel like it was definitely serviceable. There was... it played just like the arcade as far as that goes.
Right.
And, yes, once you kind of get the orientation of the controls, it's a lot better. But it's kind of an awkward game in general. It's just kind of like, because it's really easy to, and the controls definitely play a big part in this, and that is, it's really easy to go in a direction that you didn't intend, and you fall off the edge, and that's just, it just always happens, and it's that's the frustrating part is, you know, when you fall off and it's just you.
It doesn't feel like a skill issue.
Yeah, it is a twitchy game. You start getting going and you start moving and it's just like you get too far and fall. And and of course that's one of those things, get good kind of thing. But it's just one of those things that's never clicked with me. But I will say it is a good port.
All right. Qubes, though, I'm going to put below Qbert because that one was just kind of frustrating in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we didn't actually ever beat a level.
No, we didn't do seemingly anything.
Yeah.
And it was kind of unclear what we were supposed to do.
Right, yeah.
I was lost for a lot of it. Not because, and just because it's like, it's not visually clear what you're supposed to line up. Are you supposed to get all three colors the same on all of them? Right. In lines or as a whole?
Well, we did get a line, and that wasn't the key. So I don't know.
Nothing really seemed to happen, and it's kind of unclear. Because even when it shows it right at the beginning, it could have maybe showed the correct pattern that you're trying to go for, but it didn't. It was just like, look at the lines. Yeah, I can see them.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm gonna have to put it in the C tier. It could be maybe something where we just have to get better at it. I'm gonna kind of go above Qbert over Mysterious Castle because it definitely is a rarer game. You're not gonna see it really out there for a lot of the systems or even the arcade. It actually did come out in arcade, I believe. Oh, actually, I could be wrong there. I think they did have a different Qbert game out for arcade.
There was some other Qbert, but it might not have been
it's
Qubes.
like harder Qbert. It was kind of a weird title, but anyway, it's just again, it's more Qbert. So since I wasn't a big fan of the
you
first
didn't even
one,
love Qbert.
Yeah, so it's hard to make the one better. So
Reactor, as a game I've never played and really only seen ads for on the back of old comic books.
Yeah.
A lot of ads.
Yeah, a lot of ads
for other games. Yeah.
That's true. They did go crazy on comic book ads. I do remember seeing a lot of those.
Yeah, which, it gets your attention.
Yep.
Reactor was a little hard to figure out, but once you did, it was kind of fun. It was, the strategy of trying to bounce things into the wall and not be bounced yourself with the sort of the little center core, as it expands, it might be pushing you into a wall, but it also technically makes it easier to bounce other things into the wall. So it's a little, it raises the tension, but you do go a lot faster as it does. It's kind of interesting in that way. There's some interesting strategy to it. The noises were really interesting. The opening music was pretty fun, I thought. I'm going to give this one a B because I don't know that it had like a huge wow factor on me, but I did enjoy my time with it, which is, again, kind of the biggest thing for a lot of these video games.
Absolutely. Did you have fun? Did you want to play it again?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I felt like it's a solid game. It never really grabbed me. And I have a hard time giving it too high a score. I'm gonna have to go for a C though, because just playing the game, it's just like it's just sort of a mess. You're not at the beginning. You're like don't know what you're doing, and it's not obvious what you're trying to do. And the graphics with the thing in the center were really rough as far as the very very pixelated kind of thing. It was just so it just wasn't high on my list. So.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you, but
tell you more about it, but
it had an interesting commercial, I will say, and definitely. It had interesting stuff going for it. But overall, I'd say it had its uniqueness outweighs its overall flaws, but not so much that I can really give it huge accolades.
Sure.
Sky Skipper, I hated the sound for.
But
you had
a really hard time with the sound.
It was terrible, at least with the headphones in. Maybe it would have been a little easier if it were just on a TV and I could adjust or whatever.
Right.
The mechanics were solid enough. I guess you were hitting a guy with a brick that you were dropping out of your plane, and then you were picking up turtles and rabbits and ducks. that popped out of cages. They kind of looked like apartment buildings. It was sort of hard to
Right.
exactly tell what they were coming out of. I don't know that I'd want to go back and play more of it.
Right.
But I'm not going to give it a D or anything. Sound design aside, it did look pretty good. You knew overall what was going on.
Sure.
But it didn't really feel like it had a lot of purpose
Right.
behind what you were doing. Didn't feel like...
It didn't seem like there was that much of a game to me. I mean,
Not
yes,
really.
it was cool, but it was kind of like, all right, this is what you do. And it's not... It didn't have anything really compelling to me. Yeah, I'm gonna... Let's see. It's gonna be a C title for me, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Just a matter of where. And that's kind of the tough thing with some of these.
Yeah.
It's just... ranking them amongst, S to D is a little easier than ranking them amongst themselves sometimes. Even in C, where it's like, I don't love these games, but I gotta figure out which one's the best C.
Exactly.
Which one's the best...
Yeah, exactly.
which is a lot harder than even, like, what's the best? Yeah, ooh, aha.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is controversial for me, because I love most Spider-Man things. Huge comic book fan for my whole life. Spider-Man, one of my favorite superheroes. I didn't like this game at all. I didn't have very much fun with it.
Right.
Don't really like that you can't move in any meaningful way other than with the webs. I thought it was sort of strange that you can shoot your webs all the way out and hold it in space that apparently doesn't exist so much that you'll fall down. But you just kind of have to you have to be like, all right, I guess I'll try and react quickly. Oh, no, I fell.
It's a falling game. You fall a lot.
Yeah, I actually didn't like this game.
Wow.
I'm a huge...
Wow.
I'm a Spider-Man fan. I just didn't have fun. I will say the graphics, the things I will give it, the Green Goblin looked pretty good. And yeah, the Green Goblin looked pretty good. I really dug the commercial. They got a guy to dress up as the Green Goblin, picture perfect for like the comic books and everything. And they had a cool Spider-Man. It was a cool commercial for a game that I wouldn't ever play again.
I believe I had this when I was a kid, and so I had played it before, and it's okay. I think I'm gonna have to go a little higher than you though. In that it's a decent game, but yeah, I can't go much higher. Definitely a C tier for me. Where it is in here, as we were talking about before, let's just do this. But still keep that Mr. Juice Castle. Just keep pushing that down.
Keep that at the bottom,
because I still have to give Mr. Juice Castle props for the sound and the sound and the graphics.
Can't go to D, but it's certainly not.
So it just has to stay there and just keep getting pushed out.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
Star Wars Jedi Arena. Okay, that was like fully original. Wasn't based on anything. Seemed like it'd be pretty fun with the proper equipment and stuff. The fact that because of our control setup, this I could feel was a matter of our control setup and not necessarily the controls themselves.
Sure.
Where when you switch sides, when someone squares a point, it gets really hard to figure out which ways to actually aim things because it reverses itself. But I don't know that would be as difficult on the original hardware.
I guess at that point, if it did reverse and it was the wrong way, you could just flip the paddle over.
Kinda, yeah. And it wouldn't actually affect your ability to play it at all.
Yeah.
Whereas this was like, there's no good way to do that. So I want to give it a little credit for that.
Right.
I thought it was a unique two-player game. A unique experience. We just played single player, but I could tell that playing two-player would be pretty fun overall. But it's not like incredible or anything.
There's not much to it.
There's nothing to it besides that. It's kind of the problem. Is like things don't get more interesting as you go in one player even.
Right.
It's just potentially the guy's gonna try harder. Maybe.
But I mean, really, it comes down to if it's a 2-player game, then it's a skill-based thing. You're playing against the other person.
And that makes a difference, so I'm going to give it some credence and put it in the mid-B, but it's not really a game that, on its own, if you don't have someone else to play with, that I think I would play again.
Right.
But it's got solid chops. I appreciate that it's original.
Yeah, it is nice, because most of these are ports. Almost, I mean, all the ones, let's see which isn't.
Star Wars the arcade game, probably an arcade game.
Yeah, a little bit. Montezuma's Revenge was not. Frogger 2, Amidar. No, that was an arcade game, I'm pretty sure.
Sure.
Jedi Arena, Reactor. Some of these are originals, but a lot of these are ports, so you have to kind of take that into account. But
I do think it's also cool that it's original Star Wars content,
right?
Where a lot of everything at this time was just adaptations of those first few movies.
Yeah,
like literally the next 2 games in our list, which I guess I can rank now.
Actually, kind of the next 3 of them. I mean, the arcade games really kind of the first.
They were really similar.
Yeah.
Because, I think Return of the Jedi had a lot with those multiple screens. I didn't really like that you were constantly being blasted, and it was really hard to tell when that was going to happen in that one bit at the end of the Death Star battle.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it props. You know what? Just because these are like the Star Wars block.
I know. I was thinking of that.
I'm gonna say.
You're just going to rank them all?
I'm going to do that, I think.
Fair enough.
Just because,
I was thinking you were going to order them so that based on the movie order. But yeah, that's fine.
I'm just going to rank them because...
Sounds good.
Yeah, here's what I'm thinking. 2 of these games, Star Wars, the arcade game, and Return of the Jedi Death Star Battle, are literally just both of them are just you blowing up the Death Star. It's just the last scene in both movies.
Right.
And in Return of the Jedi, pretty fun, honestly. The multiple screens was really cool, all that kind of stuff. Star Wars the arcade game was pretty fun overall, but it added some weird stuff, and also the ad just straight up lied.
Yeah,
like the commercial.
Oh yeah, that was pretty bad.
That
there were the arcade game.
that there are walls and there's this and there's that, and it's like none of that's true.
Right.
And I didn't like the inverse controls, and obviously, it was a 2600 game, so there's not an option to uninvert up and down.
Right.
That's a nitpick, of course, but and then Empire Strikes Back. I still had a lot of fun with it, even though it was pretty straightforward.
Very simple game.
Yeah, you are blasting a very long line of AT-ATs and trying not to get hit. Good enough. I had fun with it. This one I think is an A for its style and the multiple screens. These 2 are pretty solid, but I can't give them huge accolades. So there's my hot take. They're also all based on these 3 all movies. Jedi Arena being unique and its own thing does make a difference for me there.
Okay, so I gotta apologize to our editor Ray, because he just has to deal with what he just did and it totally screwed up his format.
Does it?
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna change the order on these, and I'm gonna actually put them in the order of the movie just to make it a little easier here.
Okay.
Star Wars the arcade game. So I had played the original arcade game a fair bit in the arcade, and there was a lot of cool stuff going on. It was a vector graphics game, but one of the things that was really cool about it, and a lot of the ones that were out there, it was a cocktail, or not cocktail, it was a sit-down cabinet. So you get in the cabinet and play.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
And it was such a cool thing. And granted, the 2600 game is actually pretty true to that. We didn't see the things that in the trench run, but that may be a difficulty setting. Overall, as far as the arcade game goes, I thought that it was actually pretty good. Especially comparing it to the source material. Yes, it had those towers that I've never understood why the arcade game had those as well.
Yeah.
It's like they needed more than just shooting stuff and then the trench run. They felt like they needed to add more to the game. I don't know why. Empire Strikes Back. I thought that, you know, this is a game that is pretty standard. Everybody knows this game.
Right.
It's very simple. You just shooting AT-ATs, you know. Personally, I kind of I'm going to have to rate it a C just because there's not much to the game. You're just flying around. You know, they didn't have a way to use like the grappling hook thing or whatever.
No, you were just shooting.
Yeah, you're just shooting, and that's not what you really did in the movie, you know, that kind of thing. So that part has always bugged me about the game, and that just how simplistic it was. It would have been much cooler had they actually done the implementation of it falling over and stuff, but it is what it is. For me, I wouldn't want to play that for more than a couple minutes because it's just, it's boring. Whereas the arcade game, at least you have other things to do. It mixes things up to where you're not just doing the same thing over and over. So that I think that helps. Return of the Jedi. You know, I actually kind of have a probably a sweeter part in my, or a sweet spot for this, just because I had played this quite a bit on my computer.
Sure, yeah.
And it was very similar. And it was one of those things that, you know, I kind of wouldn't mind coming back to it until I figure out the best strategy on actually doing the Death Star, because you actually, I think you want to go at an angle so you don't get hit by the thing coming down. Has a lot going on. You're trying to shoot all these things and then go through the portal thing. It's totally contrived, that 3D wall thing.
Sure, yeah.
Whatever. The point is that I think that it's again, it has more going on than Empire Strikes Back. And the movement of the Millennium Falcon was actually kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
The sound effect for moving is neat. I don't know.
It is.
They did kind of an interesting thing.
They had some fun to it. It was fun. And I think that's the big reason I put it up in A and such. So, yeah, Star Wars games. Hopefully that helped with the editing.
Yes, we'll see.
So, Strawberry Shortcake. I kind of feel like
your B just keeps going.
It does. It was kind of, I liked the graphics a little bit. Like, the characters were pretty distinct. The fact that it was kind of a puzzle, and, you know, a lot of it is pretty easy to tell. It's for kids, so it's easy to tell. But some of the legs are pretty similar, and the way the musical cues let you know which section, like it plays the first part, the second part, and the third part, and you can tell by which one's kind of off kilter, which one's wrong.
Right.
It's good implementation of what it was trying to do, and it's not unfun. There's just not a lot to it, and it would be pretty easy to just run through the whole thing in like 10 minutes if you really were just focusing in and once you knew what you were doing. So not a lot else to it, but I gotta say, for what it is, it's good enough.
I have a hard time with this one, especially when you're dealing with like kid titles and stuff. It's like, would it be fun for a kid to play? I could see it being really fun for a kid, so I have to kind of put that into perspective. But yeah, I don't know if I want to go into the B range. I'm gonna throw it somewhere in the C kind of range, just because there's not much to the game. I mean, yes, there is like the matching. I'm just gonna put it in the middle. The matching aspect is kind of cool.
Sure,
but yeah, as I was mentioning in the stream, it's like a paper doll simulator in a way.
Sure, and I mean, I just think like it's not
kids,
like it's
you know, for kids.
It deserved enough to exist because it was something unique. Right. There's no other game like it on the system.
Sure.
It filled a niche, and I think it does it well enough.
Right.
But I certainly can't put it any higher because it's all that it is.
Yeah, fair enough.
Super Cobra, I feel kind of bad putting it now after that below Strawberry Shortcake, but it was...
there you go.
But it was such a basic nothing of a game, at least from the bit that we played, that it was like, oh, cool, it's
a game.
It's sure neat. It didn't have the same, like, what was that game we played a few weeks ago?
Laser Gates?
Yes, Laser Gates. It felt very much like Laser Gates, but with less going on.
Yeah, it felt, to me, it felt really clunky. It felt really like the movement on it was not smooth. It just wasn't overly... There's no polish to it?
No, it's just, it is what it is, and what it is fine. But
yeah, fine. It's a C title for me.
oh yeah,
I gotta. Oof.
I gotta say, Parker Brothers so far. I know we're about to do our wrap up.
Keep pushing it out.
Yeah, like it's a little bottom heavy. I'm noticing.
For me.
I mean, to be honest, these B's are partly just because I'm impressed by some of the things that they did with it.
Sure.
Not all of them, I think, but I'm pretty high in those C's too, and I've got a D even. So, and like Tutankham is not going to help that situation. Because that game, you go down, you move in any direction, and it just keeps you moving. And that doesn't really feel good in this kind of a game.
Right.
You can only shoot sideways. I couldn't always get it to work. Like, you had to hit it sometimes a lot, and then you'd shoot a bunch of times. Yeah. But things would also, like, spawn almost constantly in some of those spots. Yeah. I remember you were sitting there for a good little bit.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just going to keep shooting this thing,
And you got a very small window after that. It wasn't great, I would say. This implementation of this, whatever this game is supposed to be, did not accomplish what I think it wanted to accomplish. It wasn't a fun game to me. It was implemented poorly, and like, you have to go sideways, not at the end of a corridor. So since you go all the way down, you have to, like, juggle yourself to try and go into the spot you need to continue the game.
Yeah, the whole movement thing, I think, is a major distraction.
It's a huge reason that I didn't have a great time,
I love the concept of running around collecting things, because I think that's just the concept of that is kind of neat, especially in a 2600 game. Sort of, I don't know what you would call it, but, you're running around collecting treasure and stuff. But really, the movement just killed it for me. That being said, I could see myself playing this again. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go in the low B range, just because it would be kind of neat to see what more there is to the game. I imagine there is more. I know that it was based on arcade games, so I'm pretty sure it was based on an arcade game.
Get on a minute.
Maybe it was it perhaps was based on an arcade game.
It could have been based on an arcade game.
But regardless, I do feel like while the control issues were a problem, I do feel like I'm wanting more. I feel like I'm wanting to kind of see if there's anything more.
I see what you're saying.
Versus a lot of these other games, they're pretty much, this is what it is. That's the game.
Yeah, it's kind to one and done.
Yeah, exactly. But, we don't know on Tutankham. So.
I suppose not. Yeah. But I got to say, high highs and low lows for Parker Brothers.
Yeah.
Like, Gyruss is some of the most fun I've had on the Atari 2600, and it's a game that I'm thinking about, and I want to play more in general. Spider-Man, I don't ever want to play again, and 007 the same, and a lot of these games are just like, it exists, and I appreciate their effort behind it, but I don't think they nailed it in the same way that some of these other companies did.
I think good, not great is a good review from me. I feel like there was a lot that could have been better. I mean, obviously they weren't plagued by a lot of the issues that the early Atari games were. They didn't seem to want to push the envelope too much. And it was like, okay, so a lot of these are ports, and they tried to do serviceable ports. But not all the games
succeeded.
Yeah. But the problem is with some of these, not all the games are amazing arcade games. So it's kind of like,
they didn't really have the cream of the crop for some of them.
That's kind of way I kind of look at it. Now, obviously, looking at the top of the list, these guys, with the exception of Frogger 2 and Montezuma's Revenge, I mean, Gyruss, Frogger, and Popeye are solid arcade games. There's no question about that. And these are solid ports of them. So it is nice to see the non-arcade games. I think truly, and this is something that we have seen kind of over and over again, where these games really shine on the 2600, in my opinion, are the exclusives, or not even the exclusive, the
unique
ports.
games to
Unique
the
games.
system, at least for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be for the unique for the system, but just not an arcade port. Because the problem is when you start doing the arcade port, it's never going to be as good as the original.
No, because it can't be. It just doesn't have the weight.
It can't be.
No.
But with a console game, they have a much lower bar to hit. And
at least at this time.
Yeah. And so I feel like with a lot of these, they could do whatever they want and be like, all right, Montezuma's Revenge. That was a Parker Brothers title. And they came up with it. So they could do whatever they want. Sure. For good and bad. Some of this stuff.
Better and worse.
To be honest, looking at some of this stuff, it's a platform game that, it has a lot of the concepts that we take for granted today. And platformers,
sure,
we didn't really have that stuff back then. So it does give, in my opinion, I have to give it props for kind of setting the standard on some of that stuff.
Fair enough.
But
we'll see when we eventually rank all these companies where it fits. But Parker Brothers, I still had fun playing them, even the ones that weren't fun.
Sure. I mean, overall, I think that they're pretty good.
Their tagline, the one to beat, I don't think fits, but
right.
They are a serviceable.
Wait till you get to the other third parties.
Oh, I'm sure, but
then you might.
Maybe we started too high. We should have started low.
Well. Anyway, I think that's all we have for today.
I think so.
Yeah, as always,
let us know your stuff.
Yeah, give her your list. We'd like to see what you rank yours at. There's possible that we might have missed on something huge on one of these games.
Who knows?
And, Mr. Deuce Castle might be someone's favorite game on the
Post your video responses.
Or Spider-Man.
Yeah.
People, we got a lot of hate over Superman, so maybe Spider-Man will be the same way.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I doubt it.
Yeah,
but maybe
it's possible.
You put all your vitriol down in the comments, and we'll lap it up.
Yeah, there you go. All right. That being said, see you in the next adventure. Take care.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this kind of content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. I post new videos all the time and I wouldn't want you to miss any. If you'd like to see more of this series, be sure to click up here. And if you'd like to see something else, be sure to click up here.